When will I be good enough to be all I wanna be? When?
So, I am with a spark of splendor. Your story is a sensational story.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to be here in Canberra, ACT, and with your beautiful family, which you've had such great fun, having a cup of tea and having fun before we go on air. So, Lynnette Dickinson, this is your life, your moment to share.
Thank you.
With the world.
So where do you want me to start?
Where did it all begin?
Where
did it begin?
I guess my journey with yoga began when I was 3. And after the children's programs I watched on television, a yogi came on and did her yogi thing. And I just thought she was the most exotic, the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Who I thought was a long-limbed Indian woman called Swami Saraswati. And I just started doing yoga, copying her. And it somehow got into my soul because I did it long after I forgot about Swami Saraswati. I still did yoga and I sat cross-legged as I do now, and just did my bits and pieces of yoga, you know, like from what I remembered. And then I started doing little bits of practice. And then when in 2003, my physical condition started to degenerate after my 3rd child was born. And eventually in 2004, I had a physical breakdown. I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. I was in Britain at the time, in hospital. And about 3 days into that, I was in excruciating pain and dysfunction. And I was having waves of physical and neurological symptoms moving up and down my body. I couldn't lift my head off the pillow, I couldn't move. And the only way that I could be with that was to be as still as I possibly could. And so I made my mind be still, I made my body be still. And the more still I became, the easier it became to be in that situation.
Did it come out of the blue?
The MS?
Yeah.
Yep. It's sort of been, I had lots of little symptoms for a number of years, but not put any of them together. Lots of little weaknesses, lots of funny things with my vision, tingling, patches of my body that I couldn't feel, but all separately. But after the birth of my child, my 3rd child, they started happening together. And more, and I started losing my balance, and my foot started to drag, my speech was affected. Sometimes I'd have such a cloudy mind I couldn't think. But then in that moment where I slipped through, there was this moment of stillness where I slipped through and it felt like I was in bliss. Slipped through what? I don't know, slipped through some barrier between our conscious world and what's possible, I guess. And the pain and the physical symptoms went to the edge, went to the outside edge of my consciousness. It's not that they weren't there, it was just that it didn't matter that they were there because I was in peace.
You were in peace
and
in that hospital?
Yeah, in the middle of that dysfunction and chaos. And it didn't last, of course. But I started to do what I thought was meditation. I didn't know what it was. But I sat, and every time I did it, it enabled me to accept the condition that I was in more. You know, I needed a walker, and I panicked. Of course, I was less than 40. Why would you need a walker? It was such a shock to me. And yet, I meditated, and then I used the walker, and I was at peace again. So each time I found myself in crisis, I sat, and that enabled the crisis to pass. And I could become at least a little bit emotionally functional. And so when I went home from hospital, I wasn't walking. And I did my own combination of thinking about yoga and the physio exercises. And then I went to a Tai Chi program for people with neurological illnesses. And I was in a room with 10 other people, all of whom had strokes, all of whom were over 60. and there was me. And the teacher said, it doesn't matter what you do, if one arm doesn't do it. All of them went home and visualised what they couldn't do physically, and all of them experienced an increase in their physical mobility of the arms or the legs that previously weren't working. And so even though they didn't believe in it, it still worked for them because they went home and they thought about it. So I started thinking about my yoga a little bit more seriously in that way. But even still, even when I went back to yoga classes in 2005, when I came back to Australia, I started going to yoga, and the same thing was said to me, what you can't do, visualise. And I still didn't believe it, and there were some classes where I did very little but visualise, and I still felt so much better, even when I couldn't do it physically. And then in 2006, when I completely lost my mobility again, I couldn't use my arms or my legs, I stopped going to yoga and found myself quite depressed and in an electric wheelchair being bathed every day. So when I heard about Drew yoga and meditation workshop that was for people in emotional crisis, I thought, yep, that's me. I've got to learn how to live with this. Like, it wasn't getting any better.
No. And where did the visualization idea come from? Was that part of the Drew yoga, or was it something that just came into that group you were with?
Look, I think it comes from Drew. I think a lot of people, a lot of teachers say that, but I don't think that they realised the power of it. I think it was just something that people say. Right. I don't know that it's necessarily something that a lot of people believe.
Okay, so basically you have you've healed yourself of multiple sclerosis, MS.
I haven't cured the MS. I still have the scarring. I've got more scarring now than I did when I was in the wheelchair.
Right.
But I think what I've done is I've created new pathways around the MS. I still have MS symptoms every day.
Yeah.
But I manage them with yoga.
What are those? What are the symptoms?
I still lose mobility sometimes. I get very tired. Sometimes the fatigue of MS, I wake up in the morning already tired. People with chronic fatigue talk about that. But if I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and practice in bed, do my visualising practice, visualise a whole yoga sequence, meditate and breathe, then I don't wake up tired. I don't get up tired.